Hello all. Welcome to the 7th part of this rewatch of Granada's adaptation of Brideshead Revisited. Episode 7, The Unseen Hook, is set in the spring of 1926. Just like last month, none of the action takes place at Brideshead Castle. The first half of the episode is set in London and the second half in Fez, which at that time was part of French Morocco. Charles returns to London from Paris at the time of the general strike. This was a wide-scale sympathy strike called by the Trade Union Congress in support of striking miners, an attempt to bring the country to a standstill and force the Conservative government to continue with the subsidies that had been helping to maintain wages during the slump in coal exports. This is less than 10 years after the Russian Revolution, and there was certainly concern at the time that revolutionary elements within the labour movement might make a serious attempt at an armed uprising to overthrow the state. How realistic that was is debatable, and it is easy in hindsight to see the strike as just a flash in the pan, but Charles has been getting his news through the filter of the Paris papers, which would certainly have been hyping their sales by playing up the chances of an English revolution.
I returned to London in the spring of 1926 for the general strike. It had been the topic of Paris. The French, exultant as always at the discomfiture of their former friends, foretold revolution and civil war, until I and several friends in circumstances like my own came seriously to believe that our country was in danger and our duty lay there. We were joined by a Belgian futurist who lived under the, I think, assumed name of Jean de Brissac-Lamotte, and claimed the right to bear arms in any battle anywhere against the lower classes.
I adore the mention of this Belgian futurist, keen to join any battle against the lower classes. It adds just the right note of mockery to the narrative, and helps ensure that the viewers see this whole thing as youthful foolishness on Charles's part. I also think that the Harrods van making a delivery to the house next door is a lovely touch. It seems that the country isn't quite falling apart just yet. Charles's father is not at all concerned by any political nonsense, and is quick to mock Charles for taking it seriously. One can read this as wisdom, or one can read it as complacency, depending on how one views the attitudes of the upper middle class.
That's the reason I'm here, the strike.
I see. I know you've been living abroad. Have you now become a revolutionary?
No, Father. I was thinking of delivering food to places where they might need it. That sort of thing.
Well, Mrs. Abel has reported no shortage in Bayswater. Are you quite suited to this operation? You have no military training. You have no experience of mass provisioning. You seem to be bent on a most headstrong course.
This is the last we will ever see of Charles's father. The first of 3 such goodbyes in this episode. He is, as best I can remember, never so much as mentioned again in this narrative. Perhaps he survives all of this. Perhaps in 1944, when Captain Ryder finds himself revisiting Brideshead without warning, his father is still pottering around Bayswater, complaining about the rationing while still spending too much on classical antiquities from Sonnenscheins. Perhaps when the older Charles finds religion, his father is still there to mock him for that, as we know he would. And who are we, after all, to deny him such simple pleasures? Sure enough, Charles initially finds that he is surplus to requirements.
That's it, gents. No more needed today. Thank you very much.
Is there absolutely nothing else? I've come all the way from France.
But who should turn up at that very moment than his old companion in adversity, Boy Mulcaster?
What are you doing here? Did you see that? shape out there. Bloody Reds! What are you in, Charles?
Nothing yet. Can't get in. They're full up here.
Oh, rubbish. Come and join our lot. Bill Meadows' show. A damn fine crowd. All good chaps in the defence corps. Here. We do the milk run.
Can I join?
Of course you can. Get the fellow, absolutely delighting. Come get kitted out. Come to the office.
I say, who is Bill Meadows?
And so a place is found for Charles after all. The literal old boy network in action. We are shown very little of the work that they do. What we do see is that Boy is spoiling for a fight.
Well, you take my advice and avoid the commercial road. From all reports, they're having a bit of a fracas down there.
I say, did you hear that, chaps? They're having a bit of a fracas down the commercial road. Come on, all aboard!
Charles and Boy come out unscathed from the resulting riot, and that is the last we see of their Defence Corps adventures. Interspersed with this, we were also shown a scene from Marchmain House. Cordelia and Julia at their mother's bedside. Back in episode 1, I praised Jeremy Irons for his acting skill in making a teenage character behave noticeably 1 year older than the scene before. Now, I must heap similar praise on Phoebe Nichols for doing precisely the same thing. I know that part of it is done with hairstyle and costume choices, but this Cordelia is no longer the young girl that we have met before. She carries herself differently. Lady Marchmain, as we know, is dying. Rex has someone at the Foreign Office trying to track down Sebastian. They know that Charles is back in England and have left messages for him to get in touch. Lady Marchmain is asleep when we see her. This is her last appearance in this narrative. By the end of this episode, she will be dead. That evening, Charles ends up at a massive, wild house party. A crush of strangers, a lot of champagne. There are clear echoes of the chaos of the earlier riot. Who should he run into there but Anthony Blanche? Dear old Antoine. Boy Mulcaster has also found himself at this party. Antoine despises Boy, quite openly, and never misses an opportunity to fling barbs in his direction. It is not so much that they miss their mark as that they simply have no effect.
Because you look ridiculously out of place, Mulcaster. This isn't your kind of party at all. You oughtn't to be here. You ought to go away, you know, to the old 100th, or some lugubrious dance in Belgrave Square.
I've just come from one. It's too early for the old hangs.
We first saw these three together at that lunch party in episode 1. That was the day that Charles met Sebastian properly for the first time, so it is fitting that they show up now, on the eve of his final goodbye to Sebastian. Charles certainly seems pleased to see Antoine, and they behave very much like old friends catching up. We once heard Charles's cousin Jasper say that Anthony Blanche was a man that there was simply no excuse for, and Charles replied that he didn't like him much either. But then, a few months later, when Antoine left Oxford for good, Charles did admit that he would miss him. Antoine and Boy are the two extremes that we were given to show the range of Sebastian's friendships at Oxford. They are both old Etonians, but Antoine is a flamboyant aesthete, while Boy is dull, stupid, entitled, and reliably awful. Antoine is smart, but he delights in devoting his intelligence almost entirely towards being a bitchy little nuisance. I don't like Boy, and I do like Antoine. Is that because I am supposed to? Are they written to make me feel that way about them? Perhaps. I sometimes wonder if I am supposed to dislike Antoine as well. He is certainly not without character flaws. Sometimes I feel as if I like him stubbornly, in spite of war's intentions. All of these feelings make it hard for me to look past my biases. I find myself projecting my attitudes onto Charles, and so it seems to me that he likes Antoine, and that he dislikes Boy. I am not sure if there is any actual evidence for that last, though, in the text. When Charles ran into Boy unexpectedly earlier this episode, he greeted him then as warmly as he now greets Antoine. The two of them talk, inevitably, of Sebastian.
No, I haven't heard anything of Sebastian for over a year. Do you see him?
Oh, my dear, he's such a sot. You know, he came to live with me in Marseille last year, when you threw him over. And really, it was as much as I could stand. Sip, 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 like a dowager all day long. And so sly. I was always missing little things, my dear. Things I rather liked, including two very pretty suits. Of course, I didn't know it was Sebastian at first. There were some rather queer fish, my dear, in and out of my little apartment. But who knows better than you my taste for queer fish? Well, eventually I found out that Sebastian had been popping them at the pawn shop. And then, my dear, that he had sold the tickets at the bistro.
It's never much of a success when Sebastian stays with you, is it, Anthony?
Now, Charles, I know that puritanical, disapproving look in your eye. You think I lead the poor boy on, don't you?
You did in Athens, by all accounts.
And that's one of Sebastian's less lovable qualities. He always gives the impression of being led on, like a little horse at a circus.
So there's still no stopping him.
Later, there is a moment with Boy that casts a slightly different light on why he had earlier raced off to the fracas of the commercial road.
You and I, Charles, had a good innings today, defending the old country. That's the great pity of it, you know. You and I are too young to fight in the war. Other chaps fought. Millions of them dead. Not us. We showed them today, though. We showed those dead chaps we can fight, too. And you came all the way from Paris. Damn good. Damn good.
Came from overseas, rallying around the country in her hour of need.
Like the Australians. Like the poor dead Australians.
After the strike is over, Charles goes to Marchmain House and sees Julia. They talk about her dying mother and her last conversation with Charles at Brideshead. Julia asks Charles to try and find Sebastian and to bring him back, if that is possible, for Lady Marchmain to say goodbye to him. He agrees that he will try. This whole meeting always seems to me to be stilted and uncomfortable. At the very end of the last episode, we were given a glimpse of these two, arm in arm, 10 years from now. This is not that. Here, both of them are very controlled and formal. My dealings with that family are over, Charles had said to X the year before. He had run away to Paris, tried to leave the pain of this part of his life behind. Yet here he is, snagged by an unseen hook. Julia wants him to absolve Lady Marchmain of that last conversation, to say that all is forgiven. But the most that Charles can offer her is, "Please tell her I do understand." And then Julia asks him to drag Sebastian back to the people he escaped from. Is he really agreeing to do that? Or does he just plan to find Sebastian and tell him the news, and let him decide what he wants? Maybe that is all that Julia is asking him to do. Maybe. Not all of the discomfort and formality comes from Charles. Julia is also behaving differently than she has before. The whole thing is staged much more like a conversation between Charles and Lady Marchmain than between Charles and Julia. With her mother incapacitated, Julia is acting as her agent in this matter, playing her like a role. The only moment that the mask slips is when she is first talking to Charles, who has been waiting in the library. "Let's go somewhere else," she says. "I hate this room." There are two things that might be a reference to. The most likely, I think, is Bridie's bombshell, which happened in here. I'm guessing that is what this is referring to. I mean, this is also the room where Rex first made love to her, the room she got engaged in, but it's probably not that she hates about it. She's been married less than a year. She's not that miserable yet, I think. And so Charles travels to French Morocco, to Fez. He meets with the British consul, who sends a porter to show him the way to the house Sebastian has in the native quarter. There, Charles meets Kurt, who tells him that Sebastian is sick in the hospital. Charles speaks to a doctor there before he gets to see his friend.
He spoke in French, and he told me that Sebastian was in no danger, but quite unfit to travel. He had the grippe, with one lung slightly affected. He was very weak. He lacked resistance. What could one expect? He was an alcoholic.
Qu'est-ce que vous voulez dire, docteur?
C'est un alcoolique. Un grand alcoolique. Je vais vous trouver quelqu'un pour vous amener près de lui.
The doctor spoke dispassionately, almost brutally, with the relish men of science sometimes have for limiting themselves to inessentials, for pruning back their work to the point of sterility.
Sebastian, veuillez avoir l'amabilité de lui indiquer le chemin.
Merci, docteur.
Merci. Still have teeth.
The bearded, barefooted brother in whose charge I was put, the man of no scientific pretensions who did the dirty jobs of the ward, had a different story.
He's so patient. Not like a young man at all. He lies there and never complains, and there is much to complain of. As you see, we have no facilities. The government gives us what they can spare from the soldiers. Cavinti. And he is so kind.
And so, at last, Charles and Sebastian see each other again.
Oh. I thought it meant Kurt. What are you doing here, Charles?
I've come to find you.
There was a moment, travelling through the native quarter, when Charles reflected on the attraction of the place.
Morocco was a new and strange country to me. Now in the walled city, where the dust lay thick among the smooth paving stones, where the air was scented with cloves and incense and wood smoke, I knew what had drawn Sebastian here and held him so long.
Now he shares that moment of empathy with his friend.
You've been to the house?
Yes.
Like it?
Yes. So I've liked everything I've seen. I do understand what keeps you here.
Kurt still there? I won't ask if you like Kurt. Nobody does.
Funny. I couldn't go on without him, you know.
Charles tells Sebastian that his mother is very ill.
What do you want to do?
I don't know. Let me think about it. I obviously can't travel at the moment.
No.
Charles, do you think you could do something for me?
Of course.
Well, if you're going to come and see me again, you could smuggle in a bottle of brandy.
Charles stays on, visiting Sebastian every day. On the third day, he gets a telegram from Julia to say that Lady Marchmain is dead. We know that Sebastian asked Charles to smuggle in some brandy. We don't actually see him do that, but do get some circumstantial evidence.
Your friend is drinking again. Now the cognac will not hurt him too much, but maybe it will make him weaker the next time he's ill. Then one day some little thing will carry him away. Poof. This is not a home for inebriates. He must go home at the end of the week.
If you're going to discharge him, I'll try and stay a few more days. He'll need someone to see him home.
Your friend is much happier today. It is like one transfigured. Do you know why? He has a bottle of cognac in bed with him. It's the second I have found. The sooner do I take one away from him, he gets another. He's so naughty. It's the Arab boys who fetch it for him. Still, it's good to see him happy when he was so sad.
The two of them discuss where they go from here.
Sebastian, now your mother's dead, do you think of going back to England?
Yeah, it would be lovely. Would you think Kurt would like it?
For God's sake, you don't mean to spend the rest of your life with Kurt, do you?
He means to spend it with me. It's all right for him, I reckon, maybe.
I've been to the bank for you. Try and straighten things out a little. The bank manager was very helpful. Yeah. He says that if I can arrange with your lawyers for a quarterly allowance to be sent out from England, you can draw weekly pocket money. Now, in emergency, you can draw...
You know, Charles, it's really a very pleasant change. In all your life, you've been looked after by people. To have someone to look after yourself. Of course, it does have to be someone pretty helpless to need looking after by me.
As I was saying, in an emergency, you can draw reserves from the larger fund. Now, you've got to convince him it isn't an emergency. And you've got to collect the money personally.
Oh, good. Otherwise, Kurt will have me sign a cheque for the whole amount when I'm tight. Then he'll go off. Get into all sorts of trouble.
And so Sebastian stays in Morocco with Kurt. Charles came here from London hoping perhaps to take him home, but he manages no more than to take him home from the hospital.
What do you want?
Cigarettes. There's someone's bag under my bed.
I'll get them for you.
No! It's my job.
think that's Sebastian's job.
So I left him with his friend in the little enclosed house at the end of the alley. There was nothing more I could do for Sebastian. His mother was buried that same afternoon at Brideshead.
And that is our last glimpse of Sebastian. We will get to hear reports of him more than 10 years later from Cordelia, but we do not see him again. I feel very pleased with Charles at this point. I think this is one of the moments when he behaves very well. He obviously disapproves of some of Sebastian's choices, but he doesn't try to pressure him to change his mind. He squares everything with the bank and later with Bridie, so that Sebastian has enough money to live comfortably in the manner of his choosing, and then he leaves him there. Charles has been telling everyone for some time that Sebastian would be happier if everyone would just leave him alone. The best thing he can do for his friend is just this. It doesn't make Charles happy, but Sebastian gets to be happier than he probably would have been back in England. That's the end of the episode, with the credits rolling over film of Lady Marchmain's funeral procession. There is one other thing that I feel I ought to talk about, though, before I leave you. This is one of several episodes of Brideshead that touches upon issues of colonialism and empire and race. I am not in a good place to fully discuss issues of race. As a 59-year-old white guy from London, the only tenuous personal connection I can claim to these issues is that both of my grandfathers were born in Ireland. I'm sure that there are many excellent analyses of race in Brideshead done by actual scholars of this subject. Ill-equipped though I am, however, there are a few aspects of these issues that even I noticed. This first really came up in episode 5. It is not possible to watch Mr. Samgrass's slideshow of his and Sebastian's travels in the Levant without being reminded that the political map of the Middle East was very different back then than it is today. Because Israel would not exist until over 20 years later. Mr. Samgrass mentions bands of brigands, some of whom he says are stragglers from Kemal's army. The Kemal he mentions is Mustafa Kemal, later Ataturk, the founder of modern Turkey. The Turkish War of Independence was still underway while this trip was happening. Most of the countries that the two of them travel through on their little sightseeing tour would have been at least partially under the control of one or other of the European powers. As European travellers, the privileges that Mr. Samgrass and Sebastian would have been able to take for granted, even when slumming it, are entangled in a complex knot of colonial assumptions. The same is true in this episode, when Charles travels through French Morocco, or when Sebastian and Kurt make a home for themselves in Fez's native quarter. The issue of race had already come up earlier, though, because there were several people of colour at the London house party where Charles bumped into Antoine. Many of them were there as musicians. This was the jazz age, after all.
They are not animals in the zoo, Malcaster, to be goggled at. They are artists, my dear. Very great artists, to be revered.
It is Boy Mulcaster, of course, who gets to be crass about it.
I think Africa must be deserted.
Although there is a brief moment of karmic justice later.
Girl, that black fella. That's the girl who brought me.
Yeah, she seems to have forgotten you now.
Later still, in Fez, there are actually one or two moments when Charles feels like he has less colonial attitudes than some of those around him.
My guide was from the Sudan police and regarded this ancient centre of his culture as a New Zealander might regard Rome.
Very dirty people. No education. French lead them dirty. Not like British peoples. My people's British people.
Upon reflection, though, it's probably important to keep in mind that Charles the narrator, writing his memoirs sometime after 1944, may hold different attitudes to the younger man we get to see on screen. At the time, he thought far less of the barefoot brother who tends to Sebastian than he does now that he has found some faith of his own.
It's so kind. There is a poor German boy with a foot that won't heal and secondary syphilis. He comes here for treatment. Lord Flight found him starving in Tangier and took him in and gave him a home. A true Samaritan.
Poor simple monk, I thought. Poor booby. God forgive me.
Your friend.
That's pretty much it for this month. We have said our final goodbye to Sebastian, but I hope that some of you might stick with us through to the end. Join me next month for a meeting with Bridie, a dinner with Cordelia, and a storm on the Atlantic.